Sophia, I think that Ram Dass lecture that you read spoke to exactly the conflict that, and not to put the guy down at all, but it's Mr. Cropper, not Doctor. It speaks exactly to what he and I were disagreeing about, and it was whether or not there's something beyond the rational mind. There's certainly something lower than the rational mind. There's um, irrationality, there's stupidity, there's delusion, ignorance, um, and then there is something more pure. There's real knowledge, right? And sometimes we think that just because it's not rational, that it's necessarily somehow less than rational. But mystical experience is um, almost the pinnacle of human existence. I mean, all the great minds in history have had some sort of a metaphysical way or mystical way or spiritual way of understanding the ultimate nature of existence. Um, because it's the great minds that even think about existence, and existence is a mysterious concept because it's the concept of concepts. It's the foundation of thought itself. What is that fundamental question can only really get a mystical reply. Um, Language is defeated by the need to express a mystical experience, and um, I wanted to read just a paragraph from one of Osho's book, The Buddha Said, to sort of complement or add on to what Ram Dass was saying. Osho writes, "The mature mind is one who can remain without any search, who can be at ease even if there is no ultimate explanation of things. That's why Buddha says, 'I am not a metaphysician.' He has no metaphysics. Metaphysics means the ultimate explanation of things. Buddha has no ultimate explanation. He does not say, 'I have solved the mystery.' He does not say, 'Here, I hand over to you what truth is.' He says, 'The only thing I can give to you is an impetus, a thirst, a tremendous passion to become aware, to become conscious, to become alert, to live your life so consciously, so full of light and awareness that your life is solved. Not that you come to solve the ultimate explanation of existence. Nobody has ever come to that.' Buddha denies metaphysics completely. He says metaphysics is a futile search. So metaphysics, in other words, is whenever someone tries to completely explain the nature of everything, of existence, um, they're mistaking a map for the territory. You could say they're mistaking a belief for reality, which is always greater than we can believe, than we can understand. Um, and the question is, what is knowledge? And there's two kinds of knowledge, really. And I think Ram Dass mentioned both of them. There's this kind of objective intellectual knowing where we separate ourselves from the thing that we know. We treat it as though it were a machine of some kind, a collection of parts that we can measure and understand um, without any um, without having any intimate tie to it, without in any way influencing how it responds to our experiments that we perform on it. Now, the other kind of knowing would be more of a mystical knowing, where the split between the subject knowing and the object that is known isn't as defined. It's more um, transparent. It's almost not even. It's not even there. It's a kind of knowledge where you become one with the object, such that it's not an object anymore. It becomes the lover and the beloved become a single, larger whole, an undivided, um, an undivided wholeness or holiness. You know, the reason we talk of spiritual things is because they seem to encompass everything else. They're whole, they're holy, and the mystical experience does just that. It just any other particular thing you might come to know or experience in your finite life is no longer really capable of even pointing to um, the supremacy of that experience. Which again, I mean, when we call it an experience, it makes it sound like something that happens for like 15 minutes one day, and you're walking around by a lake and the sun's setting, and you wake up and become one with the universe, and then when the sun sets and you have to walk home, it wears off and you're back to normal. I mean, I think what is significant about the 15 minutes watching the sunset stays with you after the night has come and your life continues. It's still affecting you because it showed you something uh, below or beyond the surface, beyond the appearance, something numinous or divine, something that you can't know entirely because it is the very eyes with which you look. Um, what's amazing about a sunset is the color of it, and we know that color is not objective; it's not out there. And then we can then some scientists will say, well, then it's in here; it's created by the brain. But I don't think that's really true either, because what is the brain? I mean, it's not only color that would have to be created by this machine up here, as they call it. It's space and time. And so, a reductionistic materialist or someone that only pays attention to rationality to understand reality is forcing themselves to say that their consciousness creates everything. Though they would argue that consciousness is an illusion, but if they're saying they have knowledge of the rest of reality that's objective and perfect, then they're separating themselves from it ultimately and saying, I have this magical, transcendental view of everything else. When really, I think, this other kind of knowledge, the knowledge where you become one with what you know, it requires that you participate. And you can't have an objective view when you are part of what you're trying to know. And that is what stays with you after you've had a mystical experience. When you see that the whole thing is one, you included in it, you can no longer return thinking it could all be reduced to a bunch of particles or logical propositions or mathematical equations or whatever. Those are certainly part of it, but whatever it is, it's enough to drive people crazy, especially the ones that want to do metaphysics and actually describe and explain what it is. If you want to be a philosopher or a metaphysician, basically you're trying to tell it as it is. And, we all have our own ways of doing that, but I like to look at it more as almost a poetry. So I'm trying to sing the song of creation and do so that, sing it so that I know I'm not separating myself from it, but helping to create it with others. So it's philosophy for me would be a sharing of wisdom with as many people as I possibly can, and that means giving it and receiving it. So, thanks for reading Ram Dass, and I hope you liked Osho. Take it easy.